Welcome to Built in the Bluegrass, a podcast dedicated to cool stuff made in Kentucky. We want to share with you how it was made, why it was made, and the story behind it. And now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Built in the Bluegrass. We are welcomed today by a couple of folks, one primary interviewee that's going to discuss a little bit about their product. So this is a special little series about the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers. They've got a contest that they do called Coolest Thing Made in Kentucky. And today we are joined by Jon Andrews, who is the Plant Launch Operations Manager for GM Corvette in Bowling Green, Kentucky. They were the inaugural winners of the Coolest Thing Made in Kentucky, and they went up against some stiff competition. I know there was some people who made some pretty wild products out there. Maybe not as big in names, but they were pretty interesting throughout the 2023 version. So we are looking to interview all of them for the 2024 session and are glad to have Jon with us today to discuss all things about the award, their product, why they do what they do, why they make it here. Without further ado, Jon, if you would just talk a little bit about, last year, what you did, why you thought it was important to be participatory within, your state association for manufacturers, people who make what they do, and then, why your product ended up winning. And, it's okay to gloat and say, this is why we're the best.
Okay. Thanks for having us on, Griffin. We're glad to be here. And, you mentioned last year, a few weeks ago, we had a chance to be at the Capitol and help kick off the 2024 competition with KAM, and it was a chance to reflect. And a little over a year ago we had first heard about the competition because, again, being the inaugural year, it's something getting started, and we were super excited to get involved, get our name out there. And Corvette is a family of folks that really work on producing that car, and our partners that help us design the car out of Detroit wanted to be a part of it as well. So we made sure that we got ourselves into that initial round. And then every week, we would follow progress, both in the plant. I'd get home and shared it with my wife and daughters, and they would get in there. And it wasn't just voting for us, but it was seeing all the other things made across Kentucky that makes that competition so special. It is eye-opening for sure to see how broad manufacturing really is inside of Kentucky. And you asked about Corvette. I mean, we build America's supercar in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Nice. America's supercar.
Right. And take on the world. So it is pretty cool that we're right here in the Bluegrass.
So yeah, talk a little bit about that. I like that, America's supercar. So I don't like to use the term iconic too frequently because it kind of gets overused these days. But I would argue Corvette's up there. So what makes a Corvette so iconic? I mean, I know it was light, fast, and doing all these things, American made, et cetera. But in your own words or personal experiences, what makes it what it is? That pick your word, iconic, nostalgic, whatever it is that makes you feel that way.
Yes. So to me, a Corvette is, like I said, it's America's supercar. It's a no excuses competition or competitor to the rest of the world, right? We offer a Stingray, a Z06, and an E-Ray version of the car. Our Stingray is 495 horsepower, capable of a 2.9 second 0 to 60 time. If you get our E-Ray, that's our new performance hybrid version of the car. Absolutely phenomenal. With that V8 engine that we offer in the Stingray, we put 160 horsepower electric drive on the front axle, taking the car up to 655 total horsepower and a blazing 2.5 0 to 60 time. And then the Z06 is our flat plane crank entry, 670 horsepower, just a visceral sound as you go all the way up to 8,400 RPM redline. It is an amazing product.
Is 670 the biggest that you currently make?
670 is our highest horsepower engine, yes.
So relate that to an SUV or something like for the weight that it has to do, like, to the common person who doesn't own a vet, my dad did, but that could pull a substantial load, right? I mean, much less just be built for speed.
Yes, you know, horsepower and torque gives you really either a very powerful and capable towing vehicle, or it gives you this track beast that has all that torque available. And the beauty of that flat plane crank engine is the torque curve around 3,500. It's just flat the rest of the way out. So all the way through the acceleration, you've got all kinds of power being put to the road. And that's really what makes it special, is how long that torque curve really is inside that engine. It's an engineering marvel. Those guys did a great job.
So let's talk about design and engineering. So, a lot of times if you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty car that goes fast, right? And you talked a little bit about like the power behind the scenes. What is when you come to design and engineering, I'm sure there's a focus on all things, but how much of it is like, well, how are we going to make this? How are we going to reinvent ourselves from a design perspective? And then also, what are you doing to constantly improve the power of it? And is there a point where enough's enough, et cetera? So, what are the things taken into consideration with design and engineering?
Sure. So a little bit about what I do, and I lead the team here from the plant that interfaces with the product engineering community, both out of our PBC, the Performance Build Center, where we actually hand build that engine for the Z06. They interface with the engineering side that designs the engine, and then on the vehicle side, there's a dedicated team there as well. And so we work very closely with those folks as we are developing the eighth generation of the car, with specific targets, and work hand in hand to make sure that what they're coming up with for all the customers to be enthusiastic about, we can build down through our assembly line and with the highest quality possible. So it's a unique part of the business where my team can interface directly with that product engineering team. We've got a very special relationship, being the only plant that's making Corvette, obviously, and they're a dedicated engineering team both to the engine and to the vehicle.
So to clarify, both of those teams are out of Bowling Green, Kentucky, right? None of this is out of Michigan. Is that right?
Those two teams are based out of Detroit, but they travel here to Bowling Green regularly. In fact, again, we're the only place where these things are made, both the Corvette and that LT6 engine. And so they regularly come down, interface with our employees here as well to help make sure that their product is what they're expecting it to be.
Got it. Yeah, and I just meant they're both being assembled here. That they're the
Yes,
design
sir.
teams up there. Yeah, but it's
Yes.
not like it comes into you as a ready to go engine and you just drop it in on the chassis. Okay, just a couple of questions. About I guess we would say the not just the design and the make of it, but why people buy it, who buys it. What is your customer? Who is somebody who, not just old Stingrays from the '60s, but the people that are buying it today? What are they looking for? What matters to your new car buyer? Does somebody in their 20s right now want a Corvette? Talk a little bit about the people who that you're thinking of whenever you are doing that design, that engineering, that build.
It's a great question. And our customer is across the generations, to be honest with you. One of the things that our plant director likes to do is he likes to go over across the street right here in town to the National Corvette Museum, also here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and meet with customers. And he came back with a story a little over a month ago where an entire family had come to town to watch one of their family members who was buying their first Corvette in their 20s, and the whole family came down to help celebrate that. And so if you have that customer on one end. On the other, we get bloggers out of the Middle East that come to take delivery of their car and celebrate that experience. So we're across the globe, from, again, someone in their 20s that is able to do it early on in their life to someone that has saved maybe through their entire working career and is finally able to buy the car that they've wanted for their entire working career.
So your feeling is that it's multi-generational, but what type of person are they? Are these muscle car people? Are they typically, foreign or domestic, male, female, and what are their characteristics that they have besides all over the board? I mean, a little more specific.
Sure. Well, it's both male and female, to be quite honest with you. This isn't a male only 55-year-old plus vehicle. This is someone who is a true enthusiast. In some respects, we've got folks that buy the car, take it to the track, and they have a great time tracking this car regularly. We've got others that it's their pride and joy. They try to never let it see a drop of rain. They keep it clean. They show it at all the shows that they can enter. And so it reaches this really wide spectrum of owners. And I think sometimes there's a stereotype out there that maybe it's only a certain type of person that would like the car. And what we're seeing with the 8th generation is that our customer base has actually expanded, and we're touching parts of the consumer base that we were wanting to, quite honestly, get more engaged with our product.
Yeah, I agree. There seems to be certain stereotypes there. You don't think of a 23-year-old college girl really wanting a Corvette. You think of a 55-year-old guy going through a midlife crisis, more so than you do. But that's just me. I mean, that's the people that I'm around. You think white male muscle car divorcee in their 50s. Just joking with you, but that seems to be the people that I see driving them down the street and really proud of them. So let's transition to the assembly piece, I guess, or what you're doing, what it is you're doing. You mentioned dropping into the thing. I heard that you can build one start to finish in 2 days. Is that true?
That is pretty close. Yes.
I see. Those of you who can't see, they're both shaking their heads like, oh, maybe, but that's okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
So we start. We actually have the exterior of the car is molded composite panels that come into us. We don't actually fabricate those here, but we paint them here. And they come in and we start by spraying those panels in our paint shop. And that process is somewhat independent of the rest of the vehicle build. Those panels are delivered out to the rest of the plant where we'll install them throughout the process.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong here. They used to be fiberglass, but now they're not. Is that right? Because I know the fiberglass was a piece of the equation years ago. What was that a transition, or is that not true?
There's still fiber composite materials, yes. In some of the panels, we've got a little bit of carbon weave that's chopped into that panel, and then others, it's still a fiberglass panel.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt your mojo there on your assembly process. So, carry on.
Not a problem. So then we start in our body shop, the frame. And so we weld together aluminum components. And then we have got some other joining processes we use, from spot welding, MIG welding, what we call a flow drill screw, which is used with a structural adhesive for some of our joints. Put that all together, and then we give that a corrosion resistant coating, take it through a paint process in and of itself, and it comes back into our body shop, where we then install our first structural composite parts. These are what we call a black composite panel, and it makes the rest of the structure. And again, those are both carbon fiber chop inside of those panels and some fiberglass chop. And from there, it goes out to general assembly, where it looks like what you see in some of the movies of a traditional car factory type of environment, where we're building up the rest of that body, installing carpet, wiring, seats, glass. 3/4 of the way through the process, after the engine is installed and the chassis is largely together, we start putting the majority of the exterior of the car on the outside of it. And it really starts to look like a finished Corvette. Then we get to the end of the line after we've put fluids in it, get it started up and run it through an alignment process and a dynamic vehicle test to make sure everything's ready to go to the customer. Go through a series of final checks by our quality department and then ship it out.
Well, is it ship it out, or I mean, I had always heard that I can come and watch my Corvette be finished or built. Is that not a thing?
That is something we have offered off and on throughout the years, and certainly something we look forward to being able to offer again. Right now, we actually have tours turned off, and so customers not necessarily available to come in right now and see their car built, but they can take delivery at the museum, which is something that's really special. So when you work with your dealer, you can select museum delivery. The museum will prep your car. You'll get a tour over there, and your car's actually on display, and their delivery concierge will take you through all the different features of the vehicle, which is really something special.
Hey, I'd always heard. I was going to make sure I got the story out there. If you had one of like, what's the most interesting person? Because I presume you mentioned foreign and domestic, and there's some companies I know that do like retrofit vehicles for like safety measures for armored glass and things of that nature. And I've heard some wild stories about people coming to pick them up, or some interesting folks. Who is the two questions? This is just trying to kind of get it funny for a minute. Most interesting people that you've had come in and accept delivery of the car, etc., or the wildest places, anything like that would make where it really explains the reach of the Corvette to around the world, or just the different people that are a part of this community that you mentioned, like the sheikhs in Dubai, or something that's a crazy story about. What do you got that category?
This is Frank Jimley with the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers, proud sponsor of Built in the Bluegrass. For over 100 years, CAM has served our state's manufacturing industry through advocacy, workforce development, education, and training, as well as cost-saving benefits for members. Fighting for manufacturers is what CAM does best, representing the industry in both Frankfort and in Washington, D.C. Whether it's advocacy, offering discounts, or group health insurance, CAM has its members covered. Learn more and become a member by visiting cam.us.com.
That's a great question. You talk about some of the most interesting deliveries and over the life of Corvette, and I've been in Bowling Green with the plant since 2001, actually. Grew up out in Kansas City, Missouri, and then was fortunate enough to get here and have been here for 23 years. So we've seen a few things. I can recall quite a few stories, but the ones that are always really special for our employees are when some of the race car drivers will take delivery of their vehicles. They'll come in and it's a special moment because they take the time to spend time with our employees, who obviously really appreciate what those guys do on a regular basis, but they reciprocate because they then really honor our folks and thank them for putting together the vehicle that they're taking delivery of. And so to see people at the pinnacle of their career perhaps come in, and our folks realize that to them, they're also rock stars. That makes a pretty special interface between those groups. And it's not just the drivers, right? We get a lot of celebrities that come in. We've had Brad Paisley come up here to take delivery of a vehicle before. Just a number of folks over the years that have been here to take this iconic car.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the race car drivers, because that wasn't where I was going with this. But are they customizing? Like, I mean, I would think, whenever you go to Charlotte and see some of the NASCAR stuff, it's like everything's custom. Like, nothing looks like it mean, maybe the block, but like there's nothing that really looks. It's all customized. Are you doing that for them? Is that something like special delivery? That's not one I'm just driving up and down 65. So what are they doing besides just getting a regular car off the line?
So uh, I'm really talking about their personal cars. So they will order a Corvette. We've had, they'll take several of them took delivery of a Z06. They'll come in, they'll take delivery of that Z06. They'll spec it just like anyone else would spec the car. And they are tickled to death that they can have that car ordered out of the same catalog that any other customer could select for a build. There's not we don't do a lot of customization just because we don't need to be quite honest. We offer just a fantastic product.
Awesome. So as we start to wrap up our conversation, I want to talk a little bit about the new trends whenever it comes to vehicles. I know a Corvette's obviously a little different from just the standard family car, but you have seen a big push towards larger vehicles, trucks. I mean, you see not very many four-door sedans sitting on car lots with 2019 through 2022 models. What have you seen with that? Have you all seen that the bigger vehicles have affected certain things, or haven't? That the people that are looking for this, are they largely constant? How has that push been? Because I know that I don't remember what the number was, but it was an overwhelming number of vehicles produced now are trucks and SUVs. What have you all seen from Corvette's perspective?
So from a Corvette perspective, to be honest, the push for trucks and SUVs has not been something that we see as I think you're basically asking as a volume decline. Um,
Or
the
interest?
car,
I think or has there
or
been interest in bigger vehicles with the same power or something of that nature?
uh, so the Corvette itself, uh, it kind of stands on its own in its part of the market. We talked briefly about the Performance Build Center, where we hand build that engine for the Z06. We also hand build in that same room and area of the plant an engine for the Escalade V. So every Escalade V actually gets a hand built engine out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. So yes, horsepower into those larger SUVs is a thing, and we are proudly a part of that for sure.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I didn't know. I wasn't familiar that was built in Bowling Green for that car. So the big word of the past, particularly in Kentucky in our neighborhood here, has been electric. EVs. What? How do you feel? I mean, I've been in a few of those, and man, you feel the power, and those are not even what's the word I'm looking for here? High performance versions of electric vehicles that have just astonishing push. I know you just have electrical components, or you may have a different word, but how do you see that changing your industry, or what does it hold for the possibilities for power or just your car in general?
So you see us applying that technology similarly to Formula One in our E-Ray. We have, created that performance hybrid where we've married the electric front drive to the V8 output at the rear end of the vehicle to give you all-wheel drive capability on demand. And so yes, there is a big push to go electric. General Motors is making a big push into electric. I think it's an important part of where a big part of the market is going. At this point, where we're at with Corvette and Corvette performance, I think you see what we think is the right application at this point in time, which is marrying the two together for a performance type version of a hybrid vehicle.
As opposed to abandoning internal combustion altogether?
Correct. I think at this point, we see internal combustion as an important part of the Corvette.
So, in the spirit of Built in the Bluegrass, can you just touch on before besides anything else that you want to make sure you get out there? Let's talk about it. But is there anything you want to say about why Kentucky? Why is you? How come you stayed here? I don't know if you know the whole story about why you got here, but why here? I'm sure it's a crazy level of expertise that it takes to get this thing right, and your quality control people does not like any turnover in this customized world. But tell us a little bit about why Kentucky, why Bowling Green, et cetera.
So Griffin, let's talk about the car history for just a second, and then let's pick up Bowling Green, Kentucky. So it was shown in 1953, revealed, and then put into production the same year in Flint, Michigan, but only for a year. And from Flint, it moved to St. Louis. And it was in St. Louis until 1981. And in 1981, the vehicle was co-produced in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And then in 82, this was the only place Corvette was built. And we've been here ever since. In the 90s, a group of folks got together and created the National Corvette Museum, which interestingly enough, Zora Duntov, who was a big part of bringing performance to Corvette. Harley Earl introduced it. Zora is really who helped us get a V8 into the car back in 55. He actually drove a bulldozer at that National Corvette groundbreaking. And his ashes are there to this day. He is in the Corvette Museum. And about 10 years ago, we've added the Corvette, our National Corvette Museum has added their motorsports park. And so now when you come to Bowling Green, you've got the only place in the world we build the car, coupled with our National Corvette Museum and their motorsports park. And really the big driving force for getting Corvette to where it is today, and Zora Duntov being enshrined over at the museum. I think that when you look at all that together, Kentucky really has become the heart of Corvette, and Corvette's become a part of Kentucky. The threads have woven together so much so that we see each other. Bowling Green leadership here in town and Corvette plant leadership see each other as huge partners in the community and in each other's daily lives.
That's awesome. The spirit of what our podcast was is like, when we got into it, we did not know. I mean, sure, we knew Corvettes were being made here, but there's so many things you don't realize are being made in your Kentucky backyard that, I mean, it's a good place to live. It's a cheap place to live, for lack of a better way to put it. There's lots of things that you can get accomplished here. So we're proud of that as well. Anything else you want to leave us with before we sign off?
So Griffin, we've talked a lot about Corvette in Bowling Green, and we've talked a little bit about how much global reach the car has. One thing we didn't get a chance to talk about is the fact that we're building not only left-hand drive cars that everybody is used to seeing here in the US, but we also build a right-hand drive version that is sold in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain. We talked a little bit about the Middle East. We export to the Middle East. We export across Europe, really around the globe. It is a wonderful time to be here at Corvette. And the men and women that put the car together build any and all of those versions any day of the week. We don't set up a special run for a right-hand drive car. We put it, a right-hand drive Z06 might be immediately behind a left-hand drive Stingray that's going to Canada. And it might be followed by a car that we're building for Israel. And it might be followed by a car that's going to upstate New York. It is something that we're really proud of, that we're able to put together a system along with trained individuals on that line that are capable of building any and all of the products that we offer to the world. And, I talked about this briefly in the Capitol. The Kentucky Association of Manufacturers and Kentucky Farm Bureau put together a video for us after we won the inaugural award. And if folks haven't had a chance to see that, you should go out and take a look at it, because the men and women that were able to be featured in that show just this enthusiastic pride for what we do. And that's part of why we enjoy having the public in here when we can as well. The pride of the men and women, and being able to say that they're building the Corvette in Bowling Green, Kentucky is just huge. And so we're happy to be here. We love being in Kentucky. Like I said, I've been here since 2001. We've raised a family here. It's hard to envision myself somewhere else with things as good as they are here in Bowling Green. It's just an amazing place to be.
That was an awesome closing to a great interview. Thank you, Jon and Rachel, for being on with us today. At Built in the Bluegrass, we are the spotlight sponsor for the coolest thing made in Kentucky. So we're excited to talk to everyone down the line. If there's any advice you have for us when we're talking to people, that's different from our interview today, you make sure you let us know. But our goal is to make sure we are spotlighting these businesses, making sure everyone knows about the products that are made here, how cool it is, and how they can be a customer. I think everybody knows how to be a customer of Corvette if they really want to. They just probably got to come up with the money. So that being said, Griffin Meredith from Built in the Bluegrass signing off.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Built in the Bluegrass. We hope you're leaving this episode with a better understanding of the cool stuff made in Kentucky. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get notified as new episodes become available. Until next time.